All right, so you want to dive into this. You're
Yeah.
really curious about how we think about grooming, and specifically deodorant, right?
hmm
And how that all ties into masculinity. You shared this book with us, Deodorant, a pivotal point in masculine evolution. And we'll get ready, because we're going to uncover some pretty surprising historical facts and get like a totally fresh perspective on something we probably all use every day.
Yeah, it's interesting. Most people just think deodorant's like a modern thing, right?
Yeah.
And the desire to smell good, that goes way back. It's not just about hygiene, but how men present themselves throughout history.
And the book actually starts in ancient Egypt. They used deodorant mixtures,
Hmm.
but not for everyday use. Is that right?
Right, yeah. So in ancient Egypt, deodorant was mainly for like ceremonies and social events. They used scents and fragrances as a way to honor their gods
Hmm.
and to show respect at social gatherings. It was about connecting to something bigger than themselves, I guess you could say, like a ritualistic adornment.
That's pretty different from how we think about deodorant today. Then the book moves on to the Romans. What was their take on smelling good?
Well, for the Romans, smelling good was a status symbol, a way to show off wealth. And social standing, they had these elaborate public baths and like a whole culture around perfumes and fragrances. Even back then, grooming was tied to like social hierarchy and power dynamics. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, so we've gone from spiritual significance in Egypt to a status symbol in Rome. But when did deodorant become like this everyday necessity? The book talks about a big shift in the 20th century, right?
Yeah, the 20th century, that was a turning point. Like a bunch of factors kind of came together to make body odor undesirable and deodorant use commonplace.
Right.
Think about it. Bathing became more regular. Affordable soap was everywhere. And people started working closer together, like in offices and
I mean,
factories.
it makes sense that like
Right.
as we moved from agrarian societies
Mhm.
to more like urban industrialized settings, personal hygiene became more important.
Absolutely. Social norms shifted, and body odor went from being totally fine to something you like, really wanted to avoid. And that's when deodorant took off.
But here's the thing I've always found weird. We expect men to be strong and stoic, but then there's all this pressure to use deodorant, which almost feels like admitting a weakness.
Yeah, it's a funny paradox. And you see it in how deodorants marketed to men and women, women's deodorants are all about delicate scents and floral notes. But men's deodorants, it's all about strength,
Yeah.
power, and like eliminating odor completely.
Right, it's like men aren't supposed to have any natural scent. Like any odor is a flaw that needs to be covered up.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder how these expectations shape how we see masculinity and what it means to be a man today.
And then the book adds this whole other layer, the deodorant dilemma when it comes to attraction.
This is where it gets really interesting. Humans secrete pheromones, these chemical signals
Where
that are involved in attraction. But deodorant, especially antiperspirant, can block or mask those pheromones.
Whoa, so are we, like
Mhm.
sabotaging our chances at attraction by trying to get rid of all body odor. It's like we're fighting our own biology.
Yeah, it's a good question. The book talks about how historically sweat was seen as a sign of virility and strength. But now we think it's something negative, something to get rid of.
Right, makes you wonder if we've gone too far trying to eliminate something that's natural and like in some ways essential.
And what about those artificial scents and deodorant? Are we replacing natural pheromones with manufactured fragrances? And how does that change how we see and interact with each other? It's this complex mix of biology, culture, and personal choice.
Then there's the whole health question. The book lists ingredients like aluminum, parabens, triclosan, phthalates, all potentially risky. It makes you wonder if smelling good is coming at a cost.
There's definitely a debate about potential health risks. With some deodorant ingredients, some studies link them to problems, but we need more research. It's something to be aware of. When you're picking a deodorant,
Which is probably why natural deodorants are getting so popular, that people are trying to find a balance
yeah,
between effectiveness and safety.
definitely. People are more aware of what they're putting on their bodies, and they want products that work, but are made with natural, less harmful ingredients.
The book goes as far as to speculate about the future of deodorant. Imagine deodorants that moisturize, regulate body temperature, or even respond to your body's changes with technology.
The possibilities are really intriguing. We could see deodorants that are more than just masking odor. They could be part of our health and wellness routines, like a deodorant that changes its fragrance based on how active you are, or even your stress levels.
That sounds pretty futuristic,
Yeah.
but not totally impossible with all this new technology.
Yeah, exactly. And beyond the technology, I think we're realizing that we need to challenge those old masculinity norms. that don't include self-care.
Right. It's like this unspoken rule that men shouldn't care too much about their appearance or grooming habits. But that's starting to change, don't you think?
Yeah, I think we are seeing a shift towards a more, like, holistic and inclusive view of masculinity. One that's okay with self-care and personal well-being. As strength, not weaknesses. And deodorant, as simple as it seems, can be part of that conversation.
It's been a wild ride, from ancient rituals to modern anxieties, and we're just getting started.
We've only just scratched the surface.
Stay with us as we go even deeper into the world of deodorant and all its different sides. Welcome back. We've been talking about like the history and culture of deodorant, but let's get into the science. Behind sweat and odor, the book really breaks it down.
Yeah, it's amazing how our bodies, like,
Yeah.
regulate temperature and get rid of toxins through sweat. It's, like, crucial for survival, but as we were saying, it's become something we try to stop in modern society.
Yeah, and the book says that sweat itself doesn't actually smell. It's the bacteria on our skin that makes the odor.
Right, exactly. Our skin's covered in bacteria.
Yeah.
They break down the stuff in sweat, which creates those, what are they called, volatile organic compounds, which is what we smell as body odor.
So deodorant is basically trying to control this tiny ecosystem on our skin.
Yeah, pretty much. Deodorants work in two ways. They use fragrances to cover up the smell, or they have antimicrobials to kill or stop the bacteria from growing.
Okay, but then there are antiperspirants, which actually block sweat glands. How does that even work?
So antiperspirants, they usually have aluminum salts, and those salts dissolve on your skin, and they make this like gel plug in the sweat ducts, which stops some of the sweat from reaching the surface.
That sounds kind of intense. Does that mess with the body's natural cooling system?
Well, antiperspirants do reduce sweating where you put them, but your body has tons of other sweat glands to keep your temperature in check. However, like we talked about before, some people are worried about the long-term effects of aluminum.
Right. It's a tough balance. We want to manage odor and feel confident, but also not hurt ourselves.
Exactly. And that's where natural deodorants come in. Lots of people are switching to products with plant-based ingredients and avoiding aluminum and parabens and other synthetic stuff.
The book says this shift to natural deodorants is part of a bigger cultural movement toward being more aware of what we put on our bodies.
I think so too. It's about making informed choices, reading labels, thinking about the impact of our choices on our health and the environment.
Speaking of impact, I thought the part about the psychological effects of hygiene expectations was really interesting.
It is fascinating how much social norms affect us without us even realizing it. Body odor, even though it's natural, has become so taboo that it can make people feel ashamed and anxious.
The book says advertising plays a big role. Remember those old deodorant commercials with the awkward, sweaty guys? They totally played on our insecurities.
Oh yeah, for sure. Advertisers have always used our fear of being rejected and said that body odor is this huge obstacle to success and happiness. It's almost like you have to smell good to be accepted and valued.
But it seems like that messaging is starting to change. More brands are embracing naturalness and saying it's okay to be yourself.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Instead of trying to be completely odorless, it's about finding a balance between hygiene and being comfortable in your own skin.
And the book talks about the double standard with men and women. It seems like women are encouraged to enhance their natural scent, while men have to eliminate it.
Yeah, that's true. There's this idea that a woman's scent can be attractive, while a man's natural odor is something to hide. It says a lot about how we see gender and attractiveness.
It's like we're denying men the right to have a natural scent. Like it somehow makes them less masculine.
Right, and it reinforces this idea that men always have to control and change their bodies to fit in.
That pressure to conform can be harmful, especially for young guys.
Totally. We need to challenge these old norms and be more accepting of different kinds of masculinity.
The book also talks about how deodorant is connected to social class.
Oh yeah, not everyone can afford fancy deodorants or ones made with organic ingredients.
And that can create more judgment and division.
For sure. It feeds into this idea that you're only worth something if you can buy expensive things. It's a subtle form of discrimination.
The book makes a good point. We need to move away from this idea that hygiene is about status.
I agree. Everyone should feel clean and confident, no matter how much money they have.
Okay, let's talk about the workplace. The book says using deodorant is basically required.
It's true. It's seen as professional, and if you don't do it, there can be consequences.
The book has stories of people not getting promotions or even losing their jobs because of body odor.
Yeah, it shows how much we care about appearances at work.
It's like we have to fit into this sterile, odorless mold. What happened to individuality?
Right. When we suppress individuality, we lose creativity and real human connection.
The book argues for a more understanding workplace.
Yes, where people feel comfortable being themselves without worrying about being judged.
Okay, let's talk about something fun. The book also explores the humor in deodorant.
Oh, yeah. Deodorant has been used in comedy for ages.
I remember that scene in Anchorman
Yeah.
where Ron Burgundy puts on deodorant before his date. It's funny because it makes fun of how obsessed we are with smelling perfect.
Exactly. And there's so many deodorant commercials that use humor, like those Old Spice ads. They're funny and memorable.
The book says humor can help challenge social norms.
For sure. It lets us talk about sensitive topics in a light way, so people are more open to new ideas.
So deodorant, even though it seems simple, actually touches on some deep stuff.
Yeah, it reflects our culture, our anxieties, our values, and how we see what it means to be human.
We've covered a lot, but there's still more to explore. Okay, so we've looked at the history, the science, the social impact of deodorant. Now what about the future? Where's deodorant going? What does the book say?
Well, the book talks about how technology could, totally change deodorant. We're already seeing those smart deodorants that adapt to you, and the possibilities are kind of crazy.
It's like sci-fi. The book mentions deodorant patches that release scent based on your activity level or even your mood.
I know, right? Imagine a deodorant that releases a calming scent when you're stressed, or a more energizing one when you need a boost.
And besides the technology, the book also talks about sustainability and being eco-conscious.
Yeah, there's definitely a growing awareness of the environmental impact of regular deodorants, the packaging, the chemicals. It's not sustainable.
But a lot of companies are changing. We're seeing more natural deodorants, refillable containers, biodegradable packaging.
It's good to see that. Consumers want transparency, and that's pushing brands to be better.
The book also mentions the ethical side, like fair trade and responsible sourcing.
That's so important, making sure everyone's treated fairly, from the farmers to the factory workers.
It's about recognizing that our choices have an impact.
Exactly. It's not just about profit anymore.
And going back to our main theme, it's interesting how the book links deodorant to the whole conversation about masculinity.
Yeah, for sure. Deodorant kind of shows how our views on masculinity are changing. It's not about fitting into a box anymore.
It's about realizing that men, just like women, have different needs and preferences.
Right. Self-care isn't weak. It's actually a strength.
The book even suggests that deodorant can be a way to express yourself.
It can be, like choosing your clothes or hairstyle.
So to wrap things up, what are the key takeaways for our listeners? What should they think about when they're putting on deodorant?
Well, I think we've learned that deodorant is more than just a hygiene product. It's part of our culture, our society, and it's a personal choice.
We should know what's in our deodorant and think about the impact of our choices.
And remember that deodorant ads often play on our insecurities. We need to challenge those messages.
It's about finding what works for you.
Yeah, and maybe even using deodorant to show off your personality a bit.
This has been a fascinating look at deodorant. If you want to learn more, check out Deoderant, a pivotal point in masculine evolution. You can find it on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
It'll make you think.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time.